welcome to Eco Girl in a Modern World. My channel is dedicated to talking about topics about how to be environmentally friendly in a modern context. So just ways that we could try to be mindful and how to gear ourselves or steer our shopping habits towards more environmentally friendly and doable goals. So I wanted to do a special video today. I hinted at it on my social media platforms. I had a really I had a fun time filming this one or taking the photos, but I've talked before a lot about fast fashion and, you know, the benefits of both slow fashion and of thrifting and buying vintage, buying secondhand. I've mentioned in other videos before, whenever I buy clothes, I have 5 eco rules that I follow. One is that I do not, I look to buy only organic fabrics. So I look to buy natural fabrics like cotton, linen, silk, hemp, wool. If I'm going to buy new, I'm only looking for 100% those fabrics. The other thing is when I buy something new, I buy it with the expectation of wearing it at least 30 times. Anytime I pop my tags, I look up the tags of my materials. I also like to shop secondhand. So that's another one. If you are going to buy something that's a synthetic fiber, make sure that you're not buying it new. Make sure that you're buying it secondhand. And then the other rules are that monitor impulse, because again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Avoid duplicates, and definitely just try to be mindful of your footprint. Why am I consuming this? Why am I buying it? But I wanted to go ahead and share this. This has actually been a long time in the making. My birthday was late last year, and there's, I'm saying that wrong, another great YouTube content provider named Alyssa Beltempo. And Alyssa she's very classically dressed. She's definitely a fashionista, but she talks about ways that you can shop your closet, the way that you can, she's all about slow fashion. And her videos are very timeless, very stylish. She's traveled in Europe. She's talked about capsule and travel wardrobes, and just about making do with the clothes that you already have and how to get the most wear out of them. And she created a fantastic video. I was really inspired by this video, and I'll post it in the details below. But while she was in Croatia, she filmed a video about shopping at vintage shops. Those cultivated shops that that the shop owner buys all vintage clothes and curates it for your shopping experience. It's really a rare thing nowadays, but she was shopping in Croatia, and it's really beautiful. The beginning of the video is a question and answer with the shop owner, and then the rest of the video she goes into steps on how to shop, how to, what to look for in a vintage shop, how to try things on, and what to be mindful of. And she's got some really great tips in there. And I'll be honest, when I first saw that video, like, I think when it first posted, early last year, and it inspired me to go to a vintage shop. And it was really awesome. The tips that she talked about were so inspiring. Again, she talks about what to wear, where you can try clothes on in case you don't have a fitting room. She talks about having a vintage override button, because when you find something that's one of a kind, even if you go in with a list, which you're encouraged to do, if you find something that is just that special object, the other thing is it really pushes you out of your comfort zone. Just like thrifting, you might find something from another time that you didn't think that you could wear, and that's actually going to play into today. But after watching her video, I was so jonesed. I was like, okay, is there any vintage shops near me? And there was a vintage store in the western area of my state. And before my birthday, I just went in, and it was such an awesome experience. It's a store called Venus in the Half Shell, and it was everything that you could imagine. It was, the owner of the shop really had a beautiful, curated collection of clothes. And in Alyssa's video, she talks about that too. Sometimes that is reflected in the price, because you have somebody who is picking out choice pieces of garments that are not made anymore. And the quality of those garments is just really amazing. That's the other thing, is that one thing that, we talk about with our fashion rules is that fast fashion is made very cheaply with really, with labor forces that aren't paid a living wage, and they're made very quick using cheap materials that have a lot of toxins in them. Is mostly polyester, which shed microplastics. It's really not good quality clothes. But we seem to gravitate, or we buy up, as consumers. There is a high that you get when you purchase, and it seems like a lot of times we're just dressing for another decade as it is. Like right now, Y2K is very popular, and when I went to high school, the 60s was very popular, and everybody wanted to look like that. So what we really want to get away from is that cheap reproduction of it, when you do have vintage alternatives out there. So it's exciting to see that at these beautifully curated stores, and that really is a testament to these shop owners, because it's a lot of work. I can only imagine. It's hard for me to imagine how they can be there running the cashier drawer when they're still out there collecting all, doing the hard work of combing through things, estate sales and stuff, to find all this great, merchandise, right? And then of course the added benefit is, anytime you buy something used, anytime you're buying something vintage, you're keeping it out of a landfill. You're giving it a second and third and probably fourth life, right? And the other thing is that when you buy vintage and stay away from this fast fashion, the other danger that we're looking at as we move forward is that when you buy fast fashion, it's not as sturdy as things that you can get at a vintage shop. And I'll come back to that in a little bit, but buying vintage is so wonderful because you get high quality things, you get things from that decade, you get unique things, and to be honest, the price is not that much more expensive than what you would pay for a bunch of this cheap reproduction stuff anyway. But I was inspired, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to visit the vintage shop and see if I found anything I liked. So before my birthday, I did go in and I was looking for a birthday outfit. I kind of had, as just like Alyssa's video said, I did kind of have a list in mind, but then I did have my vintage override button as well. If I saw something that I liked, I could go for it. Now, I went in, I'm a big fan of the 80s. I like dressing like the 80s. But so I had seen a lot of the jean skirts from the 80s were very popular right now. And I had actually seen a picture. There was a picture from the 80s of a girl in London that I saw, and I really loved her skirt. I didn't want the big pockets as much, but I just wanted, I remember as a child, I always remembered how stylish they are, and they're amazingly feminine. So I'd gone into Venus in the Half Shell, and I was just in Wonderland, guys. It was really beautiful. They had excellent music on. They were playing, Fleetwood Mac. And actually, when I came home, when I got back, I even bought the record for my record player. But the song was Seven Wonders. If you want, I'll post it in the description box. It's so much fun to actually shop and listen to fantastic, music as well. But I was in the market for a jean skirt, and I went and I looked, and I saw some great stuff. In addition to, 80s stuff, they had some beautiful 60s, attire. And what's really amazing about that is that it is really also, like in Alyssa's video, it's encouraged that you try things on, if possible, in the store, just because the sizing is not always the same. And I think people struggle with that now, even with, new clothes. It's like, something might say one size, but really when you put it on, your measurements. The other thing is that a lot of vintage clothing is very tailored to the body. It's not as, I think with the introduction of mass production of a lot of things, we've kind of gotten into this cookie cutter kind of mentality where it's not really form fitting. You know, like when high-waisted jeans came back into popularity, you really kind of have to know your measurements. You kind of have to know your body type to see what jeans look good on you before you go in. But I did find a fantastic jean skirt, and it was so perfect, guys. I just really felt like I had found exactly what I was looking for. And you know, it was really perfectly tailored around my waist, and it is a little bit more voluminous, but I think it flatters my body really nicely, and I've worn it a whole lot. It's 100% cotton, so it's adhering to my natural fibers rule, and it's funny, I've worn it a lot. I've worn it a lot. I have different colored shirts, and I have a cotton tote bag that says MTV on it, and I just throw on, you know, and it's actually pretty easy. You can throw on just a pair of white, you know, slip-on sneakers, and it looks really good. I wore it with a pair of Vans that I have, Vans sneakers, and it's just very versatile. The other thing about vintage, that when you hear the term vintage, and Alyssa says it in the video too. I'm going to see how many times I can say that in this video. Alyssa says it in the video too. But the term, the actual definition of vintage is anything 30 years old or older. So yes, stuff from the 80s is vintage. You know, of course we think 60s and 70s and stuff, that's vintage too, but 80s is definitely vintage now. Some 90s stuff is vintage. But I remember I had gone on eBay and I had gotten a vintage 1987 swatch, and I'll be talking about that more in the future, but that swatch actually goes really, really well with the jean skirt. It goes perfectly. It actually goes really well with another white top that I wear with shorts. It's just, it gives an 80s vibe, right? And I did also get some vintage earrings online. But going into this vintage shop was fantastic. I had such a good time. And there's also really lovely jewelry at the shop too. That's the other advantage of going into a shop. They have wonderful accessories. They got purses, they got bags, they got sunglasses. That is all, you know, not brand new. So pretty much anything you buy is going to be extending the life of that product and keeping it out of a landfill, giving you something unique. A lot of it is quality materials. Now, and so that's our goal. So shopping vintage is really, really good. When I was looking, I did peek at the jewelry. I feel like I have too much jewelry, but I did actually treat myself also, because it was my birthday, to a double pearl ring. And I was kind of dressing a little bit more, you know, a little bit more preppy, a little bit more sophisticated, and it went really well with my outfit, you know. And so, but I love that pearl ring. It fits me perfectly. It's actually not like a round size. You talk about, you know, how all the clothes had special tailoring. The ring had a special tailoring too, because I know for a fact I wear, you know, like a 5. What is it? It's a, you know, like a 5.5 on my left hand, and it fits. So, you know, when you get jewelry as well, you know, try it on, because it could be, you know, your exact match, your exact fit, you know, tailored to you. But I love the double pearl. I actually have a little bit of a joke about that. I feel like I you know, in my astrology chart, I kind of have a deep side, and then I have a more airy side. I have a lot of water and air, and sometimes I feel like you know, depending on my mood, am I angel or devil today? And so what I do is, if the dark pearl is on top, I'm in a devilish mood. If the light pearl is on top, so it's almost I can call it a mood ring, right? Go ahead and call it a mood ring. But I love that ring. I've been wearing it a lot. I'm not wearing it now, but I wear it a lot. Now, the other thing that I got, and, you know, per the video, she talked about having an override button when you found something that you really liked. Now, I've been talking about like leather a lot. And in a couple videos, I think it was in Labor, we talked a little bit about how it is conscious. You hear a lot about vegan leather or vegan fur. vegan leather and vegan fur are polyester. It's plastic, and believe it or not, a lot of that fake, it's fake materials. It doesn't biodegrade. It's covered in chemicals, and if you when it reaches its end life, if you throw it away, it's going to be leaching chemicals into the ground. So I am a big advocate for natural leather and natural fur, but I'm not new though. I'm, anti-cruelty. If you buy the fur vintage, and these vintage stores are perfect for that, but my override button came when I saw this beautiful pencil leather skirt that I tried on, and it was about $70, which is not bad, guys. I mean, seriously, you could look online and pay $300 for a fully leather skirt, and it was a Lord and Taylor skirt. And believe it or not, the sizing threw me a little bit. I thought it was going to be too big. I have a 29-inch waist. And it's so, again, if you know your measurements, know your body type, and I'm very pear-shaped. So, but the skirt is a size 12. And I would think that would be too big for me, but believe it or not, it fits perfectly around the waist, and it tapers around the hips, and it looked fantastic. And that skirt ended up being my birthday outfit. I wore a 100% cotton t-shirt of a Queen of Swords, and then I wore the leather skirt, and I have worn it several times since. And it's a gorgeous skirt. It goes really, it's a really rich brown, and it goes good with a cream turtleneck. I have another really kind of heavier top that I can wear with it. It's very versatile, and it's very on trend with all of the styles of, wearing leather and stuff like that. And it's vintage, No one else would be seen in that. You might find something similar, but if you buy it, fast fashion or anything else, you're going to see a lot of duplicates out there, and it's all cheap and not biodegradable. Here I am giving, article of clothing a second life, and it's so fantastic. It's beautiful, and I am really eager to go back to that store. Fantastic shop. Now, I wanted to not just talk about the one store, because I have been to other stores as well. The nice thing is that sometimes vintage shops aren't necessarily all just clothing and accessories. You find little gems of those kind of stores also. But the other thing is that you can kind of find those stores that look like they're vintage, but really they're selling new wares, new clothes that look vintage. You want to go, what I'm advocating for here is the actual vintage stores, the curators of vintage clothing. But sometimes you can find little gems of vintage stuff at antique malls. I actually, when I get to doing my furniture video, I found a beautiful desk. I'm a papercraft artist, and I found a draft desk, a desk that has a slight angle to the front of it that I can use for my papercraft art, and I found it at the antique mall. But the antique mall that I went to actually has these little shops. They have the little, the little stations, little cubicles where each one is their own ownership. And some of them have racks of clothing. Some of them have, books or furniture. So, that can be included in vintage stores as well. Antique malls are a great source for finding, vintage dresses and clothes and all sorts of beautiful stuff. But what really kind of inspired me is that I was like, and I did actually find I found a beautiful velvet blue jacket that I will show in a future video. I haven't debuted it yet, but I'm going to be wearing it soon. So I'm going out to lunch with a friend of mine, and I'm going to dress up. So it's going to feel good, and I'll share that with you. But I decided to go ahead and, because I'd really only gone to the one store. I was like, let me do another store to give a good example of what you can find there, right? And oh boy, guys, I decided to. I was up in the area in near the coast of my state. And I decided to check out a wonderful vintage store there. And it's mostly 60s and 70s based. And I was really attracted to that because, it's funny, when I first did my fast fashion video, I was lamenting so much about growing up in the 80s, the age of excess. I completely failed to mention the 60s and 70s, which my mom would totally correct me for, is that, the 60s, oh my gosh, she remembers, it's like, in the 50s, you had a lot more organic materials, but after the Second World War and when you got into the 60s and 70s, that's when we really did start to use a lot more of these synthetic fabrics, nylon and my mom even mentioned we got into disposable dresses, like, wear it once and throw it away. That's really when, a lot of this began. And the polyester era, good God, how can you not talk about disco? Do we, and if you looked at what the Beatles wore, what the Monkees wore, what half of these rock stars wore, it was head to toe polyester. It was zoot suits and the big lapels, and it was gaudy as hell, and it was awesome, and it was groovy, and it was the start of all of this world of polyester. So I thought, okay, if we're going to live by these rules, do not buy synthetic materials new, but if you are going to buy them, if you are going to purchase synthetic materials, have it be pre-owned, have it be vintage, where you're giving it a second life and keeping it out of the landfill. One other thing that inspired me about this is that keeping in step with trends. Trends are, with, as you saw in my fast fashion video, there's 52 micro seasons of trends. It used to be much less. We've got everywhere you turn. It's actually a little overstimulating, That's another reason I kind of like Alyssa Beltempo's channel, is because it's very calm. It's slow fashion. Her showing things is just this measured pace. It's relaxing to watch. I have other channels that I watch for trends, and they're very entertaining channels, but it is almost overstimulating because we're talking about 15 different trends, and that's not even accessories, shoes, and that's just for spring. So I feel like we are getting fast paced, and that is part of the problem. But some of these trends, with all of the little influencing going around, and that's from fashion houses, that's from fashion magazines, that's from influencers, that's from celebrities, that's also from our media. That's none of that. Like, like for instance, some of the Netflix shows that have been coming up, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Some of the Netflix shows have spawned, when Bridgerton came out, everybody wanted to dress in florals and tiaras and boots, corsets and, that kind of vibe. And then when shows like Wednesday come out, then everyone's wearing more goth and sheer and, layered stuff like that. Now, one other trend that's been kind of percolating, kind of bubbling under the surface, because sometimes the fashion shows can show these what's the word I'm looking for? Show these collections, but it's not like they take off that season. Sometimes they kind of bubble under the surface. You see someone wearing something like it here and there and here and there, but then it really takes over, right? You think the trend is out, but then it comes back in full force. I feel like the disco era has really done that, and I think for a couple of factors. There was a really famous personality named Elsa Peretti, who was a jewelry designer, and she was a muse of Halston, the fashion designer, and she was really an influential woman. And there's actually a video by Kate Young, who's a stylist, that talks about her life very well. I'm going to post that below. But beautiful lady, and she actually passed away. It was her anniversary with Tiffany's. She created jewelry for Tiffany's, but then she passed away a couple years ago, and it really is a tribute to her life to talk about the 70s and that climate between the 70s, that bridge between disco and then the early 80s, and just the style of that. And she was the epitome of that. really sophisticated, sexy, completely her own individual person. And then to play into that, Netflix also did a docuseries on Halston, which is the fashion designer. So a lot of this is taking roots in the Studio 54 era. You know, the age of disco, the age of dancing and letting loose, and it was post-war, and it was free love, and it was risque, and and I'll tell you, it was straight up polyester. It was plunging necklines. It was, bat wings, and it was fabulous. It was really, exciting, and it was like freedom. And so, with a lot of addiction in there too, it was a crazy time. But that, when you talk about wanting to dress like that, and quite a few of the fashion houses have developed lines, and especially around New Year's, you saw it a lot, like a lot of metallics. Now, the thing with replicating, the Studio 54 era, and especially when you're an environmentalist, is exactly what we're talking about. If you go to a store to buy it new, even if it's not fast fashion, the chances of that shirt or that dress or this is going to be 100% polyester, or it's going to be some kind of really, really bad synthetic fabric that it's not that it doesn't look pretty, it's just, how often do you wear that out in public, And actually, in next video, I'm going to talk a little bit, when you talk about these trends, especially trends like metallics and stuff, I like to, if something like metallics is going to be popular, and right now it is, like liquid silver and metallic colors, I prefer those to be in your accessories, because really that's the way that you're going to wear that 30 times, if it's a purse or if it's shoes. So to have the metallics be more of your accessories is the way that you get worn more. But how do you deal with that when you don't want to just wear the shoes or the purse, you want to wear the plunging shirt, or you want to look like, Bianca Jagger on the horse. You want to look like, the models with the flamboyant, with the all gold, filigree, and you want to look like Elsa Peretti and Halston. You want to look like that era. And I actually, as I was researching this, you get those suggestions, you get the pop-up ads, and I started actually getting ads from Halston, and it is really amazing, the dresses, the draping, and it's gorgeous. If that's your goal, is you want to look like Liza Minnelli wearing that white Halston that white Halston jumpsuit dancing on the dance floor at Studio 54. How do you do that environmentally? Well, the best way you do it is going to a vintage store. So that was my goal. I went to the Rage from the Past, and wow, guys, just like Venus and the Half Shell. Venus and the Half Shell was very feminine and kind of, it was a little bit more demure. But Blast, or I'm sorry, I'll put the name of the store up on the screen, but that store was fantastic, and it did focus on 60s and 70s. It had 80s too, but it had everything. It had undergarments, it had slips, it had bustiers, it had, leather jackets, and it had dresses, and it was beautiful. And so I went in there just as an experiment. I did not intend to buy, and I do also have the rule, if I'm going to spend more than, $50, I will sleep on it. So even that ring I told you about earlier, I slept on it. I did not buy it on my first trip. I did call to make sure they still had it. But when I went into, the store, I was really amazed. I was like, wow, this is groovy. This is fantastic. And I went in with just like with the experience of the other store. I thought, okay, if I see something, I'm not just going to judge it by how it looks on the hanger, or judge it by what the sizing says. And I went ahead and tried on 2 dresses just because I saw 2 that I liked. The first one was called Lily of the Valley, I think it was, and it was very 80s. It was like that bridge of 70s and 80s. It had a beautiful V-neck, and it was actually a really beautiful dress. It was 100% polyester. The belt was a little aged, but that's something that you can keep or utilize for other garments, and then maybe replace with a small gold belt or something. And it was really nice, and I looked good. It was very flattering. Now, the real wowzer one that came next is I thought, okay, here I am preaching about how, you see all these Halston dresses, and the only way that you're going to get that look is if you buy it brand new. Oh, was I proven wrong? I saw this jumpsuit straight out of, it had to have been like late 70s. It was 78, 79. I mean, disco 50, disco era for sure. And it had the beading on the shoulders. It had these like Cleopatra wings. And when I looked at it in the hanger, I was like, there is no way that I'm even fitting one cheek into this, right? But it once I got it over the hips, it fit like a glove. I zipped up the back and I was like, holy Toledo. Oh my God. And I'm turning around and I'm looking, my butt looks good. It's cinching me at the waist. It's got all the rouching that you saw, that gathering that you see. It had a deep V-neck. And the funny thing and the awesome thing is when I it had, I'm not sure what you call it, almost like the genie pants, where it kind of it gathers at the wrists and at the ankles. And when I held out my hand, it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, disco Cleopatra. And I felt amazing in this. And I walked out front and the owner saw me. She was like, oh, honey, honey bun. She goes, there is a string in the back that you just tie across the back. And I was just like, I was like, wow. If I had, a party to go to, if I had a disco, if someone was hosting a Studio 54 night, oh my goodness, I think I could ride in on a white horse in that get up. And, it was, the Lily dress was $55. The jumpsuit, the Disco Cleopatra one, was about $125. But those new Halston dresses were $300 to $500, and they are designer, ready to wear. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, if even if you're just dressing up for Halloween, you spend more than $150 on that. $125, and it would keep things out of a landfill. It's vintage. You're giving it a second life. It's already created. And who in the world is going to walk in looking like that? I am going to be the only one wearing that getup. And granted, you can tell that it is vintage, especially with the beading and stuff like that. But, the benefit of this is that, that's the way that you really want to go. That's the way you really want to go. The other advantage of it is that I've seen quite a few articles where if we really want to keep vintage alive, we have to produce quality things, right? As consumers, when you put something into the cart, or when another really great influence, Lonnie Ozark talks about this all the time, the hyperlink that you click. What people say nowadays, anytime someone sees something they like, the first thing they say is, send me the link, send me the link. That's what we kind of have to untrain ourselves to do. Just like you can detox from social media, you can take breaks from social media when you're starting to become reliant on it. Shopping or adding to cart is kind of the same thing. It's dopamine in the brain. And actually, a good friend of mine brought something to my attention. She goes, did you know that it's 2 hits of dopamine? You get a hit when you add to cart, and you get a hit when it comes in the mail. And she's absolutely right. It's a little bit of an addiction, because the other thing is you're paying to ship it, and it's new materials, and how often are you going to wear it? Now, again, I'm not going to be wearing my Disco Cleopatra, it would probably be a while for me to wear it 30 times, but it's pre-owned. And that's, the carbon footprint is always 0 when it's pre-owned. That polyester is already in existence. You're not, and the other thing about, that culture that we kind of have to untrain ourselves to do is if you visit vintage stores, you're not adding to cart. You're not just saying, hey, where's the link that everybody else who's seen that item and wanted it got it, and there's 10 million of. So going and trying things on and having that experience also helps you in a healthy way, as well as the planet. So, you know, I'm not saying that that's the direct solution for everything, but it's definitely worth it to check it out. And it was a very busy store. There was a lot of people in there looking at things. I saw sunglasses, I saw everything else, and you know, moving forward, I want to create a few, you know, 70s outfits. And I'm the jumpsuit is on my mind. I may go back. I may splurge. You tell me in the comments. Should I do it? Should I buy it? It seems kind of perfect for me. So now I just have to, you know, Disco D, my friend D. Hey, you got to throw a party now so we can dance. I'll bring the records. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to share that because, you know, that's it's a good way to go. Last but not least, the other benefit is that we really do need to preserve our vintage stores. And the way that we do that is the reason that vintage stores exist is because quality garments were made in the 80s. They were purchased, you know, it's polyester, but it's quality made. And it was purchased high quality. It was preserved and kept, you know, and that's our goal. When you buy something, it isn't like, our goal isn't just to wear it once and throw it away. It's not disposable. It's not those dresses that my mom was talking about that, you know, we don't want that mindset. When you buy something, expect to keep it. Expect it to be like a little piece of art that's yours, that you cherish and you wear and you care for. That way later it can go into a vintage store, because one day your stuff will be vintage. And do you want it to be that Shein crap? No, the Shein crap doesn't even hold up. It would never, and that's the other detriment that we're looking at right now with the oversaturation of the clothing market and it being such terrible quality. That is what's going back into the cycle of things. And I don't want to buy that at my vintage store. I don't want to buy Shein or anything else. I wouldn't buy that. Where's the silk and the linen and the velvet jackets and everything that we're looking at here? That's what we need to pass on to future generations. But we have to buy it high quality now, care for it now, and not buy so much of it. So this is how we keep it sustainable. This is how we keep it going forward. And vintage stores are really a testament to that. And it's also a testament to those ladies who actually run these stores. I talked to the owner of both of those shops, and they were so wonderful, so wonderful. And actually, the Venus and the Half Shell, the lady had a Polaroid of her birthday party that looked exactly like the Polaroid of my sister's 5th birthday. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I've found my Mecca, right? I've found my place to be. But so just tell me, you know, I hope this is inspiring, because again, you know, being environmentally friendly is not all gloom and doom. It doesn't have to be. It can be very exciting. It can break us out of a rut. It can get us back out in the world. And as long as we keep these quality pieces in circulation, you are doing your part for the planet, and you're also helping your economy. So, you know, hit those vintage stores. Do it. You know, do a Google search right now to go see what vintage stores are in your area, because I bet you've got some gems. And, you know, I wish there was a way you could share it with me. You know, I do have my Instagram and listed for, I'm on Instagram under Eco Girl in a Modern World. So please feel free to tag me there. I posted pictures of the jumpsuits, but all right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. I am trying to get these videos out every 2 weeks. I had a little bit of tech issues, and I apologize for tech issues last week. I had audio horrible. This week I had photos, so hopefully this is the end. But I hope you can join me next time. The next video, we're gonna take a walk on the modern side, and we're not gonna talk about, you know, environmentally friendly things. We're gonna talk about the stuff that I buy new that is not environmentally friendly, and how we handle that, and what we, you know, how we want to manage that. So please stay tuned. I hope I can catch you in the next video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.